Trying to recruit someone right now? At irishjobs.ie, we know it's just one more thing on your endless to-do list. Somewhere between preparing Friday's presentation and picking up dinner. That's where irishjobs.ie can help. With almost 1 million registered career seekers in our constantly updated talent bank, you can be sure you'll always hire at the pick of the bunch. Take that to-do list. Get a fresh perspective on your recruitment. Visit irishjobs.ie/hire.
Portfolio. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.
You've worked hard and saved for retirement, but remember, it's what you do with that money that really matters. How will you ensure that you wring every nickel out of your Social Security benefits? Could you pay fewer taxes in retirement? And how and when will you withdraw money from your IRA or 401K? Welcome to Secured Retirement Radio with Joe Lucy of Secured Retirement Financial. Joe's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal, and has nearly 25 years of helping people just like you. This is where you can count on straightforward and objective advice on how to make your money go further in retirement. And now, here's your host, Joe Lucy.
How much money have you saved in your IRA and 401K, those retirement accounts? How would you feel if you all of a sudden lost 40 or even 50% of this money due to taxes by Uncle Sam? Would this force you to potentially delay plans, delay the retirement altogether? Would you have to stay at the job longer than you had originally planned? You see, paying higher taxes is a real possibility for all of us hardworking Americans. That is, unless you take some steps to defend your hard-earned savings today. Welcome to Secured Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. I've got two guests today. I got Dylan Malberg and Ryan Dillon. So we got a pair of Dillons in the office here today, or in the studio at St. Louis Park. And what we have planned for you is if you got an IRA or 401K, any of these tax-deferred accounts, I think you're going to get a lot out of today's program. Because most people don't even realize it, but when you withdraw money from your IRAs and 401Ks, it oftentimes triggers a chain reaction events, including higher taxes around tax-deferred retirement accounts, higher taxes or unnecessary taxes to your Social Security benefits, taxes to your investment income, even as many Americans are finding out, higher Medicare premiums. And suddenly, the money you were counting on for retirement ends up being just a fraction of what you thought it was going to be. So coming up on today's program, we're going to share some simple strategies that will help you avoid 4 tax traps around your IRA and 401K that can end up costing you a fortune.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Say the first tax trap that we want to talk about this morning around your IRA and 401K accounts is paying higher than expected taxes on these retirement accounts. And when we withdraw money out of these accounts, we're going to have to pay taxes on them. And, you know, if we were to ask you as a listener of Secure Retirement Radio this morning, you know, how much you have saved up in these accounts, these retirement accounts, the IRAs, 401Ks, 403Bs, you probably know that. You sign in, you see the balance. But if we were to ask you, you know, what's your total tax liability on these accounts, that's a number that a lot of families can't come up with.
And Dylan, here's the thing. As we fill out a personal financial statement or we track our balance sheet and, you know, we put down, we have X amount in our retirement accounts. But what we really need to be doing is discounting that number based on taxes that have to be paid. Because that was the promise we made. We set aside, we got a we took our paycheck, but we were able to legally reduce it by eliminating that income from our taxes that year. It went into an account, it's grown deferred, it's accumulated due to the wonder of compounding interest and growth, compounding returns. It's grown to, in many cases, very large numbers for us. But the promise has always been we'd be taking this money out and paying tax rates at whatever the taxes were at the time of that, whatever the taxes are set at. And we have to start thinking about where taxes are going to be on this money and not just look at the balance sheet, because it's a real possibility with everything going on, COVID and stimulus and even just where the administration said they want to go with things, that we are going to be paying a lot higher taxes than what we think that account balance says that it's worth.
Yeah, and if you're going to be withdrawing money out of these retirement accounts over the next 20, 30, potentially 40 years, that's a lot of different tax rates potentially. And you look at where we're at, there's this perfect storm brewing. You look at the government spending around the stimulus and with the pandemic and everything that we're looking at right now. The writing's on the wall that taxes are going to have to go up.
It is, and keep in mind that I talk a lot about this on the program, Dylan and Ryan. I believe that we've been fed the biggest lie of our generation. I think that the lie that we were told somewhere back in time, somebody said, you're going to be able to take this money out of your paycheck. You're going to not have to pay tax on it. It's going to grow into an account. It's going to defer. And when you take the money out, you'll be in a lower bracket than when you put the money in. But unfortunately, due to cascading events here, we got, the COVID stimulus, like we said, and not all the taxes that we're going to pay are necessarily going to come from the 1040 return that we file in April. There's necessary taxes around Medicare premiums. You may end up paying more tax there. A lot of Americans are finding out as they take this money out, not only are they paying tax on the money that comes out of their IRAs, but now they're paying tax on Social Security income that otherwise would be tax-free. You got to start connecting the dots. And then if you're looking at planning, understanding that planning around taxes, look forward planning is different than tax preparation, which a lot of us are getting ready to do or already in the process of doing. That's typically working with the rearview mirror. It's something that's already occurred. I use the deductions of the tax code to get myself in the best. What we're really talking about here is how do we reposition those financial assets so that we can pay less tax over time, getting rid of maybe some of these excessive Medicare premiums that we might have to end up paying, reducing the tax around Social Security, potentially keeping us out of a situation where we're paying capital gains or excessive gains or an extra 3.8% on our gains. It's a whole slew of things that we want to look at, and millions of Americans have put aside this money in their IRA, been told never to touch it, and it's the absolute wrong thing to do at this point in time when you start looking down the road where taxes are very likely going.
No, and if you're not looking at putting together a comprehensive plan around how do we start reducing taxes long term, and that doesn't necessarily end with just making sure that you have this great investment philosophy or investment plan, which is, you probably did have a great investment plan, which is why you're at this point of having more money than maybe you ever thought you'd be able to have in these accounts. But if you can't or won't put a plan together or can't put a plan together around how to take it back as tax efficiently as possible, it's going to be ultimately less money for you and your family.
Well, and if you're in that golden decade, right, if you're between the age of 59 and a half and 70 and a half, if you are getting serious about your retirement, it's now the time to really start looking at how this all fits together. All too often, what got you to the point you're at is not going to bring you to where you need to go. We need to start thinking about taxes. We need to start looking at how to bring back income, and that's different than just having a mere investment strategy. Having the accounts in the Vanguard funds and just letting them do their work has gotten you to a certain point here. But now, how do we take it back? How do we make it tax efficient? And how do we make it last a lifetime? We're talking this morning about 4 IRA and 401K tax traps that can end up decimating your retirement account. So if you have an IRA or 401K and you want to think of this as all being your money, it's really a joint account between you and the IRS. With the threat of higher taxes, no longer just a estimate, it's a near certainty. You could be paying a lot more on these accounts than you even know, and this can end up leaving you with just a fraction of the retirement savings that you think you have. You can take advantage of some simple tax planning strategies today that can put you into a situation where tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of future taxes can be saved. That's why I'm making a very special offer today just for the listeners on this morning's Twin Cities or Secured Retirement Radio. And you can discover how to reduce, completely eliminate taxes around IRAs and 401Ks with a free, customized, secured retirement tax analysis. Very simple. You gather some information, you bring it to us, we ask you some basic questions, and then we're going to take it back to our lab. And in that lab, we're going to crunch the numbers statistically, mathematically, historically. We're going to look at every possible way, and then we're going to sit down with you, and we're going to show you exactly how much tax savings you can gain. To get this, I need you to call us right now at 952-777-8838. It's a secured retirement tax analysis. It's completely customized. It's absolutely free. It's tailored to your needs, and you can take advantage of some of these defensive planning strategies today before taxes go up. 952-777-8838. That's 952-777-8838.
Did you know you could get double taxed when you withdraw money from your retirement accounts? We'll explain why when we come back.
He's Dylan Malberg. We got Ryan with us here this morning, too, on Twin Cities News Talk, AM 1130 and Secured Retirement Radio.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secured Retirement Radio.
Hey, Dad.
Oh, hey, honey. Come on in. Have a seat.
Dad, have you showered lately?
You know I can't climb over that bathtub. I almost fell last week.
Do you or a loved one struggle to take a safe and relaxing bath? Mad City Baths is the...
When you withdraw your money from your IRA and 401K in retirement, you can end up unknowingly triggering a domino effect. Higher taxes on retirement accounts, higher taxes on your Social Security benefits, higher taxes on investment income and capital gains, higher taxes on Medicare premiums, and you didn't even know that was coming, whole lot more. But if you take advantage of some defensive tax planning strategies today, you can dramatically reduce, in some cases, completely eliminate taxes in retirement. Welcome back to Secured Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. I got Dylan Malberg here, and we got a new guest, one of our advisors, Ryan, here today as well. Today on Secured Retirement Radio, we are talking about how you can avoid IRA and 401K tax traps that end up costing retirees a small fortune in their retirement years. Coming up on this segment here, why you could be paying tax on up to 85% of the Social Security benefits, plus why Medicare premiums could skyrocket when you withdraw money from the IRAs and 401ks, and nobody's talking about this.
Yeah, that's tax trap number 2, right, Joe? The first tax trap number 1 we talked about in the show is how and when you withdraw your money from your IRA and 401k will determine how much you pay the IRS, Uncle Sam, versus how much you keep in your pocket.
Yeah, and then the second tax trap that we're talking about around is paying potentially up to 85% of your Social Security benefits being taxable. And that's really where this double taxing comes into play. Not only will you be paying taxes on these withdrawals that you're taking out of these retirement accounts, but now with these withdrawals, it creates this avalanche of other taxes around your Social Security benefits and, depending on your income, potentially your Medicare premiums.
Well, so here's the thing. Social Security income, you've already been taxed on. It comes out of your payroll taxes, out of your paycheck. When they set this up in 1935, FDR set it up and said we'd never be taxed. It wasn't until 1983 when Ronnie Reagan came in and started taxing up to 50% of it. And then a couple years later, we had Bill Clinton raising it to 85%. Numbers haven't been changed. They were never indexed for inflation. So early on, very few people were actually paying tax on their Social Security. Now it's far greater. It's over half of us are paying taxes on our Social Security income. But if the only income you had in retirement, the only taxable income you had, potentially taxable income you had, was your Social Security, you'd never file another return. There isn't a listener, and none of you that are listening to us this morning on Secured Retirement Radio would ever have to file another return. We see families that are approaching $60,000, $70,000, even close to $80,000 a year in Social Security benefits because of the way that we can help optimize these, or you can. And if that's the only income you had, there isn't a listener out there that would ever file another return. It's tax-free money. But what happens is all of a sudden the pension, a little bit of rent income, dividends, interest, capital gains, or the big one, required minimum distributions start coming out. It has to be filed on that tax return, and that money there is what creates an avalanche of additional taxes around Social Security that was supposed to be tax-free, and in many cases, additional premiums around Medicare. Many of us aren't aware of IRMA. It's not your favorite aunt. IRMA is income related to Medicare adjustment amounts, and it's the additional premiums that many of you are filing right now or paying for. It's a hidden tax because nobody's been talking about this with you, and you get to a point where you're painted in the corner, and now these RMDs are coming out, and you're getting socked in the nose each and every month, and they're reducing the amount of money that you get to pay or have to pay into Medicare.
And a lot of families take these Social Security benefits at face value, and they file at 62 or whatever they end up filing. But really, when you start looking at, and you mentioned, Joe, the families that we work with are getting Social Security in excess of $60,000 for a family, and we look at it as of last October of 2020, the average Social Security check was $1,400 a month. Now that's, you take that times 12, it's about little under $17,000 a year. And, not just when we're talking about when to file, but you look at Social Security and you talk about how it affects your Medicare premiums, how are those required minimum distributions going to come into effect down the road, really putting together a plan around Social Security and how is it going to impact all these different areas of your retirement planning?
Well, what a crazy year we had last year, right? In 2020, we started off record low unemployment. The market went on a tear, and then all of a sudden, screeching halt. We had COVID hit. Market lost 37% in a mere 2 months. Biggest drop than we've ever seen. Biggest drop that's even occurred since prior to the Great Depression occurred, and many of you have survived it. Not only that, you thrived through it, right? Because all of a sudden now nobody liked working, doing all the stuff we had to do around COVID, but the markets went on a rip. It went on a tear, and now what you're doing is you're visiting with your financial advisor. You're looking at your statements and you're high-fiving yourself and your spouse, and you're saying, we have done a great job with our accounts this year. But when's the last time you sat down and started looking at the future taxes of those IRA balances? See, you think of that money as all yours, that account balance has grown, but there's a hidden there's money due on this. It's a loan. It's a loan by the government because the government allowed you to put money into these accounts. It's been compounding, tax deferred, but at 72, you got to start taking this money out. What's that impact going to be for you and your retirement planning? See, this is a discussion that is different than an investment strategy. This is not a discussion on whether or not you have too much in bonds or not enough in bonds right now. This is not a discussion on which is the best mutual fund out there. It's not even a discussion on whether or not you should be buying GameStop or some other investment du jour, Tesla, right? This is a discussion about what is the balance you have, how much has to start coming out, and what's it going to do? What's the havoc it's going to potentially create on your tax return when there's no other choice but to take this money out? And how much of that is going to create extra taxes around Social Security? Are you going to be paying capital gains when you otherwise wouldn't have to? Are you going to be paying higher Medicare premiums than the neighbors because the income is now too high and it's too late because you painted yourself in a corner?
And again, this comes back to the overall plan and putting it together. And a lot of retirees find themselves caught off guard. They didn't expect this to happen. They may be retired in their mid-60s and they've been collecting Social Security and maybe not even filing a tax return for a few years. And then at age 72 happens and they have to start withdrawing money out of these sometimes very large accounts. And all of a sudden they find themselves going from not filing a return to.
Trying to recruit someone right now? At irishjobs.ie, we know it's just one more thing on your endless to-do list. Somewhere between preparing Friday's presentation and picking up dinner. That's where irishjobs.ie can help. With almost 1 million registered career seekers in our constantly updated talent bank, you can be sure you'll always hire the pick of the bunch. Take that to-do list. Get a fresh perspective on your recruitment. Visit irishjobs.ie/hire.
Into the 22, sometimes even 24% tax brackets today and not having a plan about what is that going to look like 5, 6, 10, 15 years from now is really where the IRS is licking their chops.
You know, when you're thinking about the levels of service that you get from the financial professionals, it really comes down to 3 levels. At the very base of this is that level of service where you're doing it on your own. You're going to Chuck E. Schwab or E-Trade, or maybe it's directly with Vanguard or Fidelity. You're responsible for the investment decisions in the accounts, and you're good with it. And you might even you might even have some skills there that you are doing just fine with that. Some of you may question those skills or want some additional advice, so you go to an advisor. This is the second level that makes investment decisions. It's a broker that helps you execute on these trades, and they'll put you into their models. For oftentimes it's kind of a model that either you fit into or you don't, but they will manage the money for you. And a lot of money managers, investment managers, mutual funds, everybody was doing really well last year that was invested in, traditional stocks. But at that very top level is where you start to get the holistic advice. It's tailored advice to you. It no longer is about just getting into a strategy, an investment strategy. It's about, how do I take the investments? How do I coordinate that together with an income plan? How do I look at taxes? And it's only at this level do you start having these discussions with your professionals, the advisors you're working with, around things like, hey, what is my required distribution going to do down the road? Am I going to be paying extra Medicare premiums? Do I have options? What are those options for me? Should I be paying more tax today? Or do I keep on waiting until sometime in the future when I'm going to be forced to take this money out and I may be very well painted into a corner without a whole lot of options? Are you having these discussions around future taxes? Because if you aren't, then you're very likely working with a professional that is only looking at the investment solutions. That the discussion is always whether or not we should be adding or subtracting from a different account, different kind of position. Then the discussion around taxes and how to take this money back, the income planning that we do here at Secure Retirement Radio, then maybe it's time for a second opinion. Because according to CNBC, deciding when to claim Social Security, and everybody that comes in for a complimentary review, we will walk you through and give you a Social Security roadmap, turn-by-turn directional guide, exactly when and how you should optimize your Social Security benefits. But deciding when to claim Social Security is probably one of the biggest and most important decisions that you will ever make in your lifetime. Remember that first house you purchased? How big that decision seemed? Guess what? Social Security is far greater, but a lot of families are just checking the box. They're just taking it at face value, and they aren't going past any more decisions around it. Do you know why CNBC says that Social Security is one of the biggest decisions you have to make? It's because hundreds of thousands of dollars are at stake. That's why I'd like to make a very special offer for you just for listening to Secure Retirement Radio this morning. I'd like to show you how you can get even more income when you file your Social Security benefits with a tailored Social Security analysis. It's a secured retirement Social Security analysis. That's the only place you can get it. It's not going to cost you a dime. In the free analysis, you're going to learn the optimal time to get more income from your Social Security when you file. I'm going to show you how to reduce, even eliminate paying tax on up to 85% of your Social Security benefits. How to prevent the decision from doubling, quadrupling Medicare premiums. Plus, if you're eligible for other benefits, sometimes these mean extra thousands of dollars in your pocket every year. We're going to make sure we share that with you as well. If you or your spouse have not already filed for Social Security and you want to get this right, I'm going to invite you to schedule a tailored Social Security analysis, a secure retirement Social Security analysis by calling right now at 952-777-8838. See, the difference between the best and worst case scenarios around your Social Security decisions is often hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime income, and it all hinges on this roadmap. Turn by turn, what is the how and when to collect my benefits. To get your free Social Security, the Secured Retirement Social Security Analysis, call us right now at 952-777-8838, 952-777-8838.
Coming up in our next segment, how your required minimum distributions could trigger a 50% tax penalty, the stiffest penalty levied by the IRS.
That's Dylan Malberg. We got Ryan Dillon joining us here from Secured Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy. We'll be back in just a few moments.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secured Retirement Radio.
Find us on your radio at AM 1130 and FM 103.5. Stream us on iHeartRadio. And now find us on OK Google, play Twin Cities News Talk on iHeartRadio.
Getting Twin Cities News Talk station from iHeartRadio.
Thanks, Google.
From the Cremation Society of Minnesota.
So let's imagine you all of a sudden lost 50% of the money inside your retirement accounts. Just evaporated. Now, it wasn't due to the stock market. It's due to taxes. Now, what this can end up doing is forcing you to delay retirement altogether, maybe. Or maybe you're going to be working longer than you need to. It's a real possibility that all of us hardworking Americans have to face unless, we take advantage of some very defensive and simple, in some cases, tax planning strategies. Welcome back to Secure Retirement Radio. I'm Joe Lucy, certified financial planner. In the St. Louis Park studio, we got Ryan Dillon. Many of you have met with Ryan in our office. I also have, longtime Dylan Malberg. So we got the three of us in here today, and we're talking about how you can avoid paying or avoid 4 IRA and 401K tax traps. And what these can do is cost you a small fortune in your retirement years. It can cause you to not have the retirement you deserve, not have that retirement you plan, maybe end up working longer than you need to. So coming up in this segment, how RMDs, required minimum distributions, can have a significant financial consequence to your nest egg, plus how to avoid triggering a 50% tax penalty. It's the stiffest, most brutal penalty the IRS ever levies on us.
And you mentioned it, Joe. We're talking about the 4 IRA and 401K tax traps that could decimate your retirement savings. And the first tax trap that we talked about this morning on Secure Retirement Radio is if you're not having a plan on how you're going to withdraw the money from these retirement accounts, the IRS is going to determine how much they're going to get to keep and how much you get to keep in your pocket. The second tax trap we talked about was how you could get potentially double taxed with your Social Security and Medicare benefits. And the third tax trap that we're going to talk about this morning is how required minimum distributions could trigger an even higher and unexpected taxes and potentially steep penalties.
That's right, Dylan. I mean, contributing to your 401k is easy. They match. It goes in automatically to these tax-deferred retirement accounts. But at some point, Uncle Sam wants their cut. They're not going to sit on their hands forever. Starting at age 72, the IRS forces you to withdraw this money from these tax-deferred accounts every year. Whether you need that money or not, whether the market is up or down, this could set a chain reaction of events during these RMD distributions that include higher taxes on your IRA or 401k, higher taxes on your Social Security benefits, and even put you up into higher Medicare payments.
Well, and maybe the biggest problem is if you decide that you don't want to take these distributions, I'm going to ignore the RMD this year. It's a 50% penalty. 50% penalty on what you were supposed to take out. So imagine... a lot of times we'll see families come in our office there. Maybe they've got let's use $1 million because the math is easy. You got $1 million in your retirement accounts, and you might not be aware of this, but the average required minimum distribution as we start looking out past 72 and they need to begin is around 4%. Starts off at 3.7. By the time you're 80, it's closer to 5. But anyways, it grows over time. But if I just use 4% on $1 million, that's $40,000 a year that you're going to be forced to take out. Now, as you said, Ryan, I got to take this money out whether the market is up or down. I have to take this money out whether or not I'm going to spend it. This right here, remember segment number 2, when we were talking about Social Security, this can create some additional tax around Social Security. For many families, they start paying extra unexpected Medicare premiums more than their neighbors because they had a good job time. They were better at saving than maybe the neighbors. And if I decided that I didn't want to take this money out, I say, hey, I don't need $40,000 unless we have a CARES Act, another coronavirus outbreak or something. I don't think the IRS is going to tell us again this year that we don't have to take it. So we ignore it. That would be a $20,000 penalty on a $40,000 distribution. Sad thing is, they take the 40, and you still owe tax on the entire 40, not just the 20 you get to keep. We see this play out over and over. And I see it more when we've had a funny year like last year where so many people didn't have to take it out, and now we aren't sure. And we've got two classes of people now that have not had to take Social Security or Medicare required distributions. Boy, the RMDs in the past. And now I know a lot of you are not sure how to do this. So if you have an opportunity, go to the securedretirementchecklist.com. I believe it's the ultimate checklist when you're getting ready for retirement. There's 31 points along this checklist. Go to the securedretirementchecklist.com and download the checklist, and it'll walk you through how you can make sure that you don't end up paying unnecessarily this 50% penalty.
And you think about these required minimum distributions. They start at age 72, and you're going to have to take one, again, with assuming the government isn't going to say, CARES Act, we're going to waive them this year, but even if they waive them 1 year, they're not going to waive them forever. Think about your parents, maybe it's your grandparents, and if they're in their 80s and 90s, you put yourself there, you're going to be taking these required minimum distributions over 18, 20, 25 years. And you look at where the tax rates are at today at all time, 40 year, even before World War II or after World War II, does it make sense to start paying tax proactively at today's tax rates versus whatever the IRS or Congress is going to deem, 10, 15 years down the road?
Well, one thing I'm pretty certain of, I've been doing this for 26 some years. I have never had more clarity as I start looking at the taxes that we money from the IRAs and 401Ks, all these retirement accounts and retirement. This oftentimes will trigger a chain reaction events. This chain reaction includes higher taxes on all of the retired retirement accounts. It could be higher taxes around Social Security benefits or unnecessary tax around your Social Security benefits, higher Medicare premiums, higher taxes around capital gains and the interest income. And suddenly, all that money you were counting on for your retirement ends up being just a fraction of what you thought it was going to be. Good morning. I'm Joe Lucy, and you're joining us here on Secured Retirement Radio. I'm a certified financial planner. Joining me this morning are two of the Secured Retirement Radio advisors. I've got Ryan Dillon, RD, and we got Dylan Malberg, not to be confused. But we're talking this morning about 4 IRA and 401K tax traps, and coming up in this segment, we're going to talk about the problems that you have that you might not be aware of when you pass this money on to your loved one someday.
Yeah, and then talking about 4 IRA and 401K tax traps this morning. And the first tax trap we talked about was your plan on how you're going to withdraw money from these retirement accounts is ultimately going to put in place how much of that money you're going to get to keep in your pocket.
That's right. And then in the second part of the show, I hope our listeners heard that you could get double taxed with Social Security and higher Medicare premiums.
And then the third tax trap we talked about was how the required minimum distributions could trigger higher taxes and even unexpected taxes around income, Social Security, Medicare benefits.
Right. And what's the fourth tax trap that we're talking about this morning?
Right
Ryan?
now we're going to dive into when you pass away, your 401k, your IRA, everything you've been saving for a long time here can trigger a tax nightmare for the people you love if you pass away.
Yeah, and there's really three things around this. And then I guess the newest development here, Joe, we talk about the widows and kiddos tax, what happens when your spouse and what happens when your kids inherit the money. But something that really impacted even both those was passed in December of 2019, effect January 1st, 2020. It got rid of the stretch IRA, your ability to stretch out these retirement accounts over your lifetime. The widows and kiddos tax. How is your surviving spouse going to pay tax in these accounts? And then eventually when it goes to the kids, how is it going to affect them long term?
I get it, because a lot of you are listening to us here this morning on Secure Retirement Radio, and you're saying, you know what, the kids are going to get what the kids get. We aren't necessarily going to eat beanies and weenies or ramen noodles to try to leave more for the kids. What they get is, we don't want to leave a mess. Nobody wants to leave a mess, but it's not like you're really trying to get them. It's found money, right? They're going to get these retirement accounts, but understand that this money is money that you deferred. It's taxes that you didn't pay that now you're passing on to loved ones. someday. Now, Dylan was talking about the widows and the kiddos. Widows' taxes, many of you may or may not be aware of this, but widows pay higher tax rates than a married filing joint couple. And then somewhere down the road, the kids get to pay taxes on these things too. We want to make sure, this has always been a problem, but the biggest issue around this is that you want to make sure that you're aware of the Secure Act, because it was passed here, as Dylan said, at the very end as we were getting into 2020. And then it completely changed the way that your family inherits money. It completely changed some of that trust planning that you were doing around your estate. It's changed a lot of things, but just in 60 days after it came into effect, exactly what happened was, well, all of a sudden CARES Act was passed because we were locking up everything with the COVID. So a lot of us aren't aware of these things. Now, when we inherited our money from our parents, maybe you were able to stretch that out. If you were in your 50s or 60s, you could take that out of the remaining lifetime. It's an actuarial account. They eliminated all that. It's now got to come out in 10 years. IRAs have to come out, Roth IRAs, all this 401k, it has to be paid out in 10 years. Now, the Roth IRAs aren't as big a problem because as the money comes out, it's at least tax-free. The problem is, when you think about that account you have and you start passing this on to them, with very few exceptions, they have to take out all of this money. If you haven't had this discussion, if you're working with an investment strategist that really just looks at the investments and is not looking at all of the holistic planning around things that are certain, like death and taxes, planning around how to take your money back, how to make it last a lifetime, if you're not having this discussion, then I invite you to join us here at Secured Retirement Radio, and let's have that discussion. Get a second opinion, because if you got an IRA or 401k, you want to make sure that you're thinking of this. You're probably thinking of it as all your money, but it's really a joint account between you and Uncle Sam. Now, the threat of higher taxes are more certain than they ever have been. In the last 40 years, we're at lows, but you're going to end up paying a lot more on these accounts than you even know, and it has to do with the all the stimulus that's been passed, the national debt that's going through the roof. We have a very short period of time here to take advantage of some very simple tax planning strategies that you can be doing right now that can save you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's why we're making the special offer today here on Secured Retirement Radio. Just for the listeners that are joining us today, I want you to discover how you can reduce and sometimes completely eliminate taxes on your IRAs and 401ks. Give us a call. Get us Secured Retirement. Look forward tax analysis at 952-777-8838. That's 952-777-8838. This is the morning to do it. Give us a call. Schedule your Secured Retirement tax analysis, 952-777-8838. That's all we have time for today on Secured Retirement Radio. We'll be back next Saturday with more. Have a great rest of your weekend.
He's a certified financial planner, fiduciary, and a contributor to the Wall Street Journal. And he's no ordinary Joe. You're listening to Joe Lucy on Secured Retirement Radio.
The pub. It's been a while. Doors are finally opening, one by one. We all deserve this. Every catch-up with old friends, every smile across the bar, every icebreaker, every "geez, I've missed this." We have our pubs back, so let's make it last. Every moment counts.
Guinness has pledged £12 million to support pubs through the Raising the Bar Fund. In partnership with the VFI, the LVA and Hospitality Ulster. Visit drinkaware.co.uk.